All right, so for today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Klein Tools K12045. Now, these are their heavy-duty, slim forge, non-metallic or NM wire strippers. Now, this is going to be for dual NM, so it's going to be for stripping 12-2 and 14-2. Now, these guys are kind of similar to the last pair of the newer forged wire strippers that we took a look at from Klein. These ones, again, are not going to be made here in the States. Klein decided to go ahead and take production over to Taiwan for these. So that is something to kind of keep in mind. But you do have some nice grips, kind of going to be the same style of grips on that last pair of forged wire strippers that we took a look at. But the only real difference about them is the color on them. It is the yellow and black, which does look fairly nice. And it also, if you had this in your bag with a couple of other Klein wire strippers, makes it a little bit easier to identify which wire strippers are which. Instead of just putting the blue and white handles, they put the yellow and black, which is nice. And again, you got the nice Klein Tools name, which is some raised lettering, and I'm not sure if it's either painted lettering or if it's just part of the plastic that makes it black, but that does look nice. Production code, and then some general safety warnings that pretty much come on all the tools. Now, first and foremost, the finish, or at least the finish grinding and polishing on this is fairly fantastic. We'll say that some of their more foreign-made tools do tend to have some nice polish, grinding, or finishing on them compared to some of the ones here in the States. And then again, you got some more safety warnings laser etched onto the surface. You have your Klein Tools name, and then you'll have the model number all laser etched onto the surface, which is nice. And just like the last pair of wire strippers, you got that torque screw, which I believe will allow you to tighten and or loosen the spring here on the inside of the tool. And then these do feature a lock, which is nice, so you don't have to worry about them springing open in your bag unless you accidentally tap that lock and they just pop open in the bag. Can happen, but it's not something that happens quite frequently, or at least for me. And then you do get a 832 and a 632 screw cutter, which is nice. And then you also have that fairly nice size cable shear or cable cutter. On here, instead of a pinch cut, you get that nice shearing cut, so it's going to leave your edges, especially with the Romex, a lot smoother of a cut. It's not going to be as jagged if you were using like a pair of linemen or a pair of diagonal cutters to cut it. You're going to get a lot smoother cut with a shearing cut. And then you are able to strip 14 and 12 solid wire, and that's going to translate to stripping 14 and 16 gauge stranded wire if you needed to do that. Now, the first larger stripping hole is going to be your 12-2. And then the one here at the top is going to be your 14-2. And all those markings are, again, laser etched onto the surface. And just like that pair of forged wire strippers that we took a look at, these are they're a slim, kind of like a long nose, it's kind of like a mix between a pair of pliers or like a needle nose pair of pliers and a pair of wire strippers. And you do have a nice cross hatching on the tops of both of the noses on the plier. And we did demonstrate in the last video that we were able to twist two 12-gauge solid wires together with these, so you can do that. And like I said in that video, I think the 12-gauge solid wire, two of them together, is going to be about the max you're going to be able to do. I don't currently have any 10-gauge Romex wire. These wouldn't strip it, but I don't have any of that. Maybe you want to head rocking these, and you need to twist a couple 10-gauge wires together. I don't have any 10-gauge solid on me to test that out, but we know you can do at least two 12-gauge wires, 12-gauge solid wires, I should say. And then the back side, again, you got a fairly nice polish there on the back, and that's pretty much it for the detail on these guys. We'll go ahead and zoom out here, and we'll get to some of the functionality on these guys. So we're going to go ahead and start off with our easy wire, our 14-2 Romex wire. So we'll go ahead and put that there on the top, and we'll strip a decent amount of that wire off. And that was a fairly clean strip. I don't think these are ever meant to take care of that little piece of insulation. We'll pull a little bit of wire out there. So we'll go ahead and split off those wires and brown paper out here. And we'll go ahead and test out the wire stripping feature while we're here. Just got to be able to line it up with the correct wire size hole. So there we go. Able to strip that wire fairly easily. And we'll go ahead and get that wire stripped again and pull that off. So it does a fairly nice job stripping those conductors. We'll go ahead and test out those shears on here. Boom, able to cut through all three of those 14 gauge wires without any issues. So fairly simple to use on 14 gauge wire. We're going to go ahead and bring in some 12 gauge wire and see if we have the same results here. So you need to use that larger stripping hole there on the bottom. And again, we'll strip off a fairly nice size of wire and pull that stupid paper off. And we will be ready to go and give these guys a strip here. So we'll go ahead and use that 12 gauge, strip a fairly decent amount of it. And it's kind of hard when you got nothing on the backside to hold the wire. It always wants to move on you, but we were able to strip a fairly large amount of that conductor off. We'll go ahead and strip that guy one more time, and boom, able to pull that conductor off without any issues. These do tend to excel a little bit better with solid wire. As you saw in the last video, if you watched that, they did kind of struggle with some of the larger stranded wire than these, but solid wire, it's pretty smooth to strip the wire. And we'll go ahead and test those cutting knives out, and fairly easy to cut through that 12 gauge Romex with these shears on here, which is fairly nice. So now the last feature on here, there is no crimper on this one, by the way. Like the forged wire strippers had a crimper down here. You typically don't crimp terminals onto solid wire unless you absolutely have to. Sometimes you got to do it for low voltage wire where it's running 18 gauge solid instead of stranded. Sometimes you have to deal with that. But the last feature on this tool we'll go ahead and test out is the screw cutter. So go ahead and thread this guy in. And again, if we got to line the tool up correctly, should be able to thread that guy in by hand, freehand. Don't need a screwdriver. And I'm actually reusing some screws from that last video that we did. This will probably be the last video that they are in. So we're going to go ahead and shear that off and see if we can do this one-handed or not. So we'll go ahead and zoom out there. And boom, we're able to do that one-handed. And we'll go ahead and back that little screw out to there. So that is the end of that screw. That was the 632 screw, able to cut through that without any issue. Now we'll go ahead and line up this 832 screw and see if we can, again, cut this guy with one hand like we were able to do in the last, the last review we did on the newer style wire strippers made in Malaysia from Klein. So we'll go ahead and do it one-handed here and see if we are able to do it. And boom, again, super simple to do one-handed. Now this guy didn't want to eject out of the back. That's probably because I had it facing upwards. We'll go ahead and pull that screw out, and that will be the last of that guy. And again, still super loose. So that's pretty much it for the review on these newer Klein forged wire strippers. Sorry about that. I'm not sure if they're trying to phase out the older pair, which is more of like a stamped pair. Here's just the older pair for reference. Stamped instead of forged. Grips are definitely going to be a lot different. The locking mechanism pretty much is different. Now on this one, I noticed they don't give you the looping holes that you have on the stamped pair. So if you were using these to loop wire, you might have to find something else. Maybe you can use the screw cutting holes, but on the forged ones, they definitely do not give you the wire loop hole on there like they do with the older stamped versions. And again, you should be able to find both of these on your shelf at your local Lowe's. It's pretty much USA competing up against Taiwan. They're probably trying to see which one is better before they go ahead and make the decision what they're going to do, or maybe they're going to offer both of them. But I kind of feel like more of their manufacturing for Klein is heading to overseas than some manufacturing here in the States. But I could be wrong. Maybe they're just, trying to see if people are more interested in the forged stuff. Might as well, set up a factory or have a die made somewhere else where you don't have all kinds of production costs, setting up a line that people aren't interested in, so maybe that's why they're doing it. Maybe eventually they will bring it to the States, but I highly doubt that. But there you go. That is going to be the review on these newer dual NM cable strippers. And again, the model number for this is going to be K12045 if you're looking to pick them up. As always, I will do my best to leave some information about these in the description. As of right now, filming this video, these are only available at Lowe's, and that's pretty much the only place you can go to find your information. I don't even think Klein has a web page for these just yet. But once I do, I will do my best to make sure I come back to this video and update the description in it. So with that being said, that's going to be all I have for this video. So thanks for stopping by, and hopefully we will see you on the next video. Thank you.